I didn't mean to see it. If I had walked into his apartment 5 minutes later, none of this would have happened. I would have knocked, he would have opened the door like nothing was wrong, and I'd still be living under the illusion that I knew Curtis completely. But instead, I used the spare key. He told me to. That's the part that still gets me. Curtis and I had been friends for almost 2 years. We met at the gym, one of those accidental friendships where you keep spotting the same person at the squat rack until eventually one of you makes a joke about it. He was loud, confident, the kind of guy who flirted with waitresses without even realizing he was doing it. I was quieter, observant, the type who noticed details and kept them to myself. We were both 23. Old enough to know who we were. Or at least that's what I thought. That Thursday night, he texted me around 9:40. "Can you swing by? I left something important at home." Doors unlocked. I was already near his place. We'd planned to meet at a bar downtown, but he'd rushed out earlier for some work thing and forgotten his wallet. Typical Curtis. Always moving too fast, always half distracted. So I said sure. When I got to his building, I didn't bother knocking. He told me to just go in. I remember thinking how domestic that felt. Like I was someone who belonged there. I stepped inside, calling his name casually. "Curtis?" No answer. The apartment was dim, just the kitchen light on. His bedroom door was slightly open. I assumed he'd run back home ahead of me and was grabbing a shirt or something. I pushed the door open. And that's when I saw him. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, back slightly hunched, phone in his hand. The room was quiet except for the faint sound coming from his screen, breathing. Soft, rhythmic. Intimate. On the screen, I caught a flash of two men. Close. Too close to mistake. Curtis didn't see me at first. He was focused. Completely absorbed in what he was watching. I don't think I even breathed. Because Curtis, the same Curtis who bragged about dating girls, who teased me about being too picky, who once told me he'd never even questioned himself, was sitting there, staring at two guys showing affection like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. Then the floor creaked. He looked up. Our eyes locked. I've never seen someone's face drain of color that fast. For a split second, either of us moved. The air felt thick, like the room had shrunk around us. His phone slipped slightly in his hand, but he didn't drop it. "Ian," he said. Not angry. Not defensive. Just caught. I should have looked away. Should have pretended I hadn't seen anything. But I didn't. My brain was still trying to process what was in front of me. "Sorry," I managed. "You said the door was unlocked." "It is," he said automatically. Then he glanced at his phone like he'd forgotten it existed. That's when he turned the screen off. Too late. I had already seen enough. The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I wasn't shocked because it was wrong. I was shocked because it didn't fit the version of him I thought I knew. And maybe because a small, buried part of me felt something else entirely. Curiosity. Curtis stood up too fast. "It's not what you think." Which is the most predictable sentence in the world, right? I raised an eyebrow. "Okay. What do I think?" His jaw tightened. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the room like he was trying to outrun the moment. I noticed how tense his shoulders were. How his confidence, the one he wore like a second skin, had cracked. "It was just nothing," he muttered. "Nothing?" I asked softer now. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Like he was measuring how much damage had been done. "I was just curious," he said finally. Curious. That word hung there between us. I stepped further into the room, closing the door behind me without thinking. My chest felt tight, but not in a bad way. More like something important was about to happen. "Curtis," I said carefully, "you don't have to explain yourself." His laugh was short and humorless. "Yeah, I kind of do." I shook my head. "No, you don't." Another silence. He studied my face, probably searching for disgust, judgment, something. But there wasn't any. Because here's the truth I hadn't told him. I'm not straight. And I'd spent the last year quietly trying not to fall for him. I never acted on it. Never crossed lines. I valued our friendship too much. Plus, he was so confidently straight that it felt pointless. So I buried it. Until now. You think I'm what? He asked quietly. Gay? The words sounded foreign in his mouth. Fragile. I think, I said slowly, you were watching what you were watching. He swallowed. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it doesn't, I said. But you don't know that, I added gently. His eyes flicked away. And that's when I realized something bigger than the shock of catching him. He wasn't embarrassed that I'd seen the video. He was terrified that I'd seen him. Not the confident guy. Not the flirt. Not the loud one at the bar. This version. The one sitting alone in his room, staring at something he clearly wasn't ready to admit out loud. Ian, he said again, quieter this time. You can't tell anyone. That's when I felt it. The shift. Because he wasn't just asking me to keep a secret. He was trusting me with it. And I didn't know yet that this was the moment everything between us would change. But it was. I won't, I said immediately. There wasn't even a second of hesitation. Curtis searched my face again, like he was trying to catch me lying. His chest was rising and falling a little too fast. I'd never seen him like this, unsteady. It made him look younger somehow. Swear? He asked. I swear. The room felt too small all of a sudden. Too intimate. The air still carried that faint, charged tension from when I'd walked in. I tried not to think about what exactly I had interrupted. Curtis nodded once, but his shoulders didn't relax. I don't know why I was watching that, he muttered, mostly to himself. It's stupid. It's not stupid, I said. He shot me a look. You don't even know what I was thinking. You were thinking something, I replied carefully. That's not stupid. He huffed out a breath, dragging his hands down his face. You weren't supposed to see that. I know. Another silence. I could leave. Grab his wallet from the dresser, crack some joke, pretend this whole thing was just an awkward glitch in the night. But I didn't move. Instead, I leaned lightly against the wall near his desk. Can I ask you something? I said. He stiffened slightly. Depends. Have you been curious for a while? He didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted toward the dark screen of his phone, like it might betray him again. I don't know, he said finally. That answer felt more honest than anything else he could have said. I mean, it's just videos, he added quickly. It doesn't mean I'd actually. He cut himself off. Actually what? I asked gently. He looked up at me then, frustration flashing across his face. You're not making this easier. I'm not trying to make it harder. He exhaled, sitting back down on the edge of the bed. His knee bounced slightly, restless energy he didn't know where to put. Have you ever? He hesitated, clearly hating the fact that he was about to ask me something vulnerable. Have you ever questioned it? There it was. The moment. I had two choices. Lie. Keep things simple. Protect myself. Or tell him the truth. I pushed off the wall and took a few slow steps closer, stopping a safe distance in front of him. Yeah, I said quietly. I have. His eyes snapped up to mine. How long? He asked. Since I was like 16. The room shifted again. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just deeper. You're. He swallowed. You're gay? Yeah. I'd never said it to him out loud before. It felt strange how something so heavy could come out so calmly. Curtis stared at me like I'd just flipped the entire script on him. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I gave a small shrug. You never asked? He almost smiled at that, but it faded quickly. And you never. He hesitated again. You never looked at me like that. The question hit harder than I expected. Because I had. 1,000 times. But I forced my expression to stay neutral. You were very clear about being straight, I said. That doesn't answer the question. I held his gaze. Does it matter? I asked. His jaw tightened. Yeah, he said. It kind of does. For a second, neither of us spoke. I could feel the air between us buzzing, like something fragile was balancing on a wire. Ian, he said more quietly now. Did you ever think about me like that? There was no mockery in his tone. No ego. Just uncertainty. I felt my pulse in my throat. I tried not to, I admitted. That landed. He blinked once, slow. Like he was recalibrating. Tried not to, he repeated. Because I respect you, I said. And our friendship. His knee stopped bouncing. And now? He asked. That question felt dangerous. Because now, everything had shifted. Now I knew he was curious. That he'd been alone in this room watching something he didn't want anyone to know about. That he was asking me questions he'd never asked before. No, I said carefully. I don't want to make this confusing for you. He let out a short breath, almost a laugh. Too late. I couldn't help it, I smiled. He noticed. Why are you smiling? He asked. Because you're not as confident as you pretend to be. He stared at me for a second, then shook his head. You don't get to psychoanalyze me right now. I'm not, I said lightly. I'm just saying, you look scared. That word made him freeze. I'm not scared. Okay. You think I'm scared of you? He asked. No, I said honestly. I think you're scared of what this might mean. That hit. His eyes dropped to his hands. I've hooked up with girls, he said defensively. I know. And I liked it. I'm sure you did. He looked frustrated again. You're too calm. I shrugged. I've had years to figure myself out. You're doing it in real time. That seemed to settle something inside him. He leaned back slightly, shoulders loosening just a little. So what? He said after a beat. You're saying I might be, what? Bi. Or something? I'm saying you don't have to label it tonight. His gaze flicked back to mine. Tonight, he repeated quietly. The word hung there. It was subtle. But we both heard it. He stood up slowly. The distance between us shrank without either of us consciously deciding it would. I don't know what I am, he said. You don't have to. But I don't want to be confused, he added. I nodded. That's fair. He was close enough now that I could see the tension in his jaw, the faint flush on his neck. His confidence wasn't gone, it was just stripped down. Honest. What if I am curious? He asked. My breath caught slightly. Then you figure out what that means, I said carefully. And if I don't want to figure it out alone? That wasn't a hypothetical anymore. I felt the weight of what he was asking. Curtis, I said quietly, are you asking me for advice? He held my gaze. No. The air between us shifted again. He wasn't asking for advice. He was asking for something else. And I could feel the line between friendship and something new stretching thin. Then what are you asking for? I asked softly. He hesitated. And for the first time since I'd known him. Curtis looked nervous. He didn't answer right away. Curtis just stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off him. His usual smirk was gone. No jokes. No bravado. Just this raw, unfiltered tension. I don't know, he said finally, voice lower than before. I don't want this to be some random thing I watch alone and then pretend didn't happen. That hit me harder than I expected. Because that wasn't about curiosity anymore. That was about loneliness. You don't have to pretend with me, I said quietly. His eyes flicked up, searching mine. That's the thing, he muttered. You're the only person I'd even consider not pretending with. The words hung heavy between us. I swallowed. Curtis, I said carefully, what exactly are you asking me? He stepped closer. Now there was barely any space left between us. I'm asking, he said slowly, like he was choosing each word with painful precision. If this is something you'd help me figure out. My pulse spiked. Help him figure it out. It sounded simple. Almost innocent. But we both knew it wasn't. You mean talk? I asked, even though I already knew that wasn't what he meant. He gave me a look. Do you want to just talk? He countered. The tension snapped tighter. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay steady. This can't be a game, I said. I'm not some experiment you try once and then laugh about later. His expression changed immediately. It's not a joke, he said firmly. You think I'd look like this if it was a joke? He gestured vaguely at himself, flushed, tense, completely exposed in a way I'd never seen before. You've always been honest with me, he continued, even when it's uncomfortable. So I'm trying to do the same. I studied him. This wasn't drunken curiosity. It wasn't bravado. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was nervous. And that made this real. You've never been with a guy, I said quietly. No. And you're not sure what you'd even feel. He hesitated. I'm not sure what I'm already feeling. That was the first time his voice cracked slightly. And something inside me shifted. Because this wasn't just about attraction anymore. It was about trust. You don't owe me this, I said. You don't owe anyone this. I know, he said. I want to know. Know what? He held my gaze. If it's just curiosity, or if it's you. My heart slammed so hard I thought he might hear it. That's not fair, I whispered. Why? Because I've had feelings for you, I admitted before I could stop myself. The words were out. There was no taking them back. His breath caught. For how long? He asked. A while. How long is a while? Since before we even became close, I said honestly. But I never acted on it because I didn't want to mess up what we had. He stared at me like I'd just rewritten our entire history. You never let it show, he said quietly. I tried not to. Why? Because you mattered more as my friend than as some fantasy. The room went still. Curtis ran a hand through his hair again, but this time it wasn't frantic. It was overwhelmed. So this isn't random for you, he said. No. And you'd still consider helping me? That question carried weight. Because if I said yes, everything would change. If I do, I said slowly, it's not as a test subject. It's not casual to me. He stepped even closer. Ian, he said softly, I'm not asking you to be casual. That did something to me. His hand twitched slightly at his side, like he was debating whether to reach out. I don't know what I am yet, he continued, but I know I trust you. My throat felt tight. And if you figure out you're straight? I asked quietly. Then I figure it out, he said. But at least I'll know I didn't run from it. His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth. And that tiny movement sent heat straight through me. You're shaking, he murmured. I hadn't even realized. So are you, I replied. He let out a quiet, breathless laugh. Yeah, he admitted. There was a long pause. No dramatic music. No sudden movement. Just two grown men standing inches apart, both aware that one step forward would change everything. Can I ask you something else? He said softly. Yeah. If I kiss you, he began, voice barely above a whisper. Will you tell me honestly what you feel? My heart felt like it stopped. Curtis. Because I don't want to imagine it anymore, he cut in. I want to know. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. You don't have to rush, I said. I know, he replied. I'm choosing to. He lifted his hand slowly. Not grabbing. Not demanding. Just resting his fingers lightly against my waist. The contact was subtle. But it was electric. He watched my face carefully, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. You can still stop this, I said softly. So can you, he replied. Neither of us moved. The tension wasn't explosive. It was slow, deep, almost overwhelming. And then, Curtis leaned in. Not confident. Not arrogant. Careful. Like he was stepping into unknown territory. His lips hovered just a breath away from mine. And for the first time since I'd walked into that room, he wasn't pretending anymore. I need to keep this non-explicit. Let's continue. He hesitated. That's what I remember most. Not confidence. Not urgency. Hesitation. Curtis had always moved through life like he owned it. But now, with his hand resting lightly at my waist and his breath mixing with mine, he looked like someone standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. Ian, he murmured, barely a whisper. Tell me to stop if this is a mistake. I didn't say stop. I didn't say anything. I just held his gaze. And that was answer enough. He closed the distance. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was soft. Careful. Like he was testing whether the ground beneath him was solid. His lips brushed mine lightly at first, almost questioning. I could feel the tension in him, the restraint, the uncertainty. He wasn't trying to take control. He was waiting for feedback. So I gave it. I leaned in just slightly. Not pushing. Not taking over. Just meeting him halfway. That tiny movement changed everything. His breath hitched. I felt it against my cheek. His hand tightened a fraction at my waist, like he needed something to steady himself. The kiss deepened, not aggressively, just more sure. Still tentative, but less afraid. And I could feel it. The shift. The moment where curiosity turned into something real. When he finally pulled back, it wasn't abrupt. It was slow, like he didn't quite want to lose the contact. He stared at me. His pupils were blown wide. Okay, he said softly. Okay. I couldn't help the small, nervous laugh that escaped me. Okay, what? That wasn't nothing, he admitted. There it was. The honesty. No, I said gently. It wasn't. He ran a hand over the back of his neck, pacing once like he needed movement to process what had just happened. I thought it would feel wrong, he said. Or weird. Or forced. And? He looked at me again, more grounded now. It didn't. That hit me deeper than the kiss itself. It felt. He struggled for the word. Natural? I offered. His jaw tightened slightly. Yeah. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It wasn't suffocating. It was charged. He stepped closer again, but slower now. Intentional. Tell me something honestly, he said. Always. Have you imagined that before? My heart thudded once, hard. Yes. He nodded once, like he respected the directness. And was it like you imagined? I studied him. No. His brow furrowed slightly. Worse? Better, I said quietly. That made him exhale sharply. You're killing me with that calm voice, he muttered. You're the one who kissed me. He gave a small, almost shy smile. Yeah. I did. There was something different in him now. Less panic. More curiosity, but grounded curiosity. Not reckless. He stepped close enough that our chests almost touched. I don't feel confused, he admitted. You don't? No. He shook his head slowly. I feel clear. Which is weird. I felt a warmth spread through me at that. Clear about what? I asked. He held my gaze steadily this time. That I wanted to do that. The air felt thin. And now? I asked. He didn't look away. Now I want to know if it still feels right. He reached up, slow enough for me to stop him, and brushed his fingers lightly against my jaw. It was different from before. Less shaking. More deliberate. You don't have to prove anything, I reminded him. I'm not proving, he said quietly. I'm choosing. That word did something to me. Choosing. He leaned in again, But this time there was no hesitation. The kiss was firmer. Still not rushed. Still not aggressive. But confident. His other hand came up, resting at my side. Not wandering. Just holding. Grounded. Real. I responded instinctively, one hand coming up to his shoulder. I could feel the solid tension in him, not fear anymore, but focus. Awareness. When we broke apart this time, either of us stepped away. He rested his forehead lightly against mine. "Ian," he said quietly, "I don't feel straight right now." I swallowed. "You don't have to decide what you are tonight." "I know," he replied. "But I do know this isn't just curiosity." My chest tightened slightly. "Then what is it?" He looked at me, really looked at me. "It's you." The simplicity of that answer stole my breath. And that's when I realized. This wasn't about a video. It wasn't about testing boundaries. It wasn't about some secret he wanted to hide. Curtis hadn't been scared that I caught him watching something. He'd been scared that I might see him wanting something he didn't understand. And now? He understood one thing. He wanted me. The question wasn't whether he'd kiss me again. The question was what this meant once the night was over. And neither of us had figured that out yet. The room felt different now. Not tense. Not fragile. Just aware. Curtis didn't step back after saying it. "It's you." He stayed close, his hands still resting at my sides like he was grounding himself in something solid. "You're really calm," he said quietly, studying my face again. "I'm trying to be," I admitted. "Why?" "Because if I don't stay steady, I'm going to overthink this. And I don't want to ruin it." His thumb brushed lightly against my side without him even realizing he was doing it. "You think you could ruin this?" he asked. "I think we could," I said honestly. "If we move too fast without talking about what happens after." That word again. After. He exhaled slowly, pulling back just enough to look at me properly. "Okay," he said. "Let's talk about it." That surprised me. "You want to?" I asked. "Yeah." He ran a hand through his hair again, but this time it was thoughtful, not frantic. "Because I don't want this to be something we pretend didn't happen tomorrow." That mattered more than he knew. "So," he continued, pacing once before stopping in front of me again. "If we keep going, if we see where this goes, what does that look like to you?" The fact that he was asking instead of assuming told me everything. "It looks like honesty," I said. "No hiding. No acting like it's just some random experiment." He nodded slowly. "And if I panic?" he asked quietly. "Then we deal with it," I replied. "Together. Or we step back. But not in a way that makes one of us feel used." His jaw tightened slightly at that. "You think I'd use you?" "I don't think you would," I said gently. "But I need to know you understand what this means to me." He didn't hesitate this time. "I do." The way he said it, steady, certain, made something in my chest unclench. "I've never felt like this before," he admitted. "Not with a guy. And honestly, not even really with girls." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I've hooked up," he said. "Yeah. I've dated. But it always felt like I was playing a role. Like I was supposed to feel more than I did." "And now?" I asked softly. He looked at me like I was the answer. "Now I'm not pretending." The simplicity of it made my throat tight. Curtis stepped closer again, slower this time. No urgency. No confusion. Just intention. "I don't want this to be just about that kiss," he said quietly. "I want to know what it feels like to actually be with you. Not just physically." That meant more than any impulsive move could have. "Then we take it slow," I said. "We don't rush into something just because the tension's high." He gave me a faint, almost amused smile. "You're surprisingly responsible right now." "Someone has to be." He huffed a quiet laugh. Then he reached for my hand. It wasn't dramatic. Just simple. Our fingers laced together naturally, like they'd done it before. And that small gesture hit harder than anything else tonight. "This feels good," he admitted. "Yeah," I said softly. "It does." He squeezed my hand once. "So what now?" he asked. "No," I said. "We don't go to that bar." That made him laugh properly for the first time since I'd walked in. "Yeah, I don't think I can fake small talk tonight." "Probably not." He stepped closer again, not to kiss me this time, but to rest his forehead lightly against mine. "I'm scared," he admitted quietly. "Of what?" "That this changes everything." "It will," I said honestly. He stiffened slightly at that. "But that doesn't mean it ruins everything," I added. He was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret telling me how you feel?" he asked. "No. Even if this blows up?" I looked at him steadily. "Even then." Something softened in his expression. "You're kind of unfair," he murmured. "Why?" "Because you make this feel safe." That wasn't something I expected to hear from Curtis. The confident one. The loud one. The guy who never looked unsure about anything. "I'm figuring it out too," I reminded him. "You don't look like it." "That's because I've had years to sit with who I am," I said. "You're doing it in real time." He nodded slowly. "Then don't let me rush you," I added. He gave me a look. "I'm not rushing," he said quietly. "I'm choosing." Again. That word. He leaned in and kissed me once more, slow, steady, not exploratory this time. Familiar already. When he pulled back, there was no hesitation left in his eyes. "I don't want to hide this," he said. "You don't have to decide that tonight. I'm not announcing it to the world," he clarified. "I just mean, with you." That mattered. "No hiding with me," I agreed. He took a slow breath, like he was stepping fully into something. "Then stay," he said softly. "Not because I'm confused. Not because I'm experimenting. Stay because I want you here." I studied him carefully. "You're sure?" He held my gaze without flinching. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sure I want you." And for the first time all night, I believed him. But wanting someone in a quiet room is one thing. Wanting them when the world is watching? That was the part we hadn't faced yet. And I had a feeling that challenge was coming sooner than either of us expected. I stayed. Not because he asked in that low, steady voice. Not because of the way his fingers were still loosely intertwined with mine. I stayed because for the first time since I'd known Curtis, he wasn't performing. He wasn't charming or joking or hiding behind confidence. He was choosing something real. We didn't rush into anything dramatic after that. Instead, we ended up sitting on the edge of his bed, shoulders brushing lightly, hands still linked like either of us wanted to be the first to let go. "This is weirdly calm," he said after a minute. "In a good way?" I asked. "Yeah." He glanced at me. "I thought it'd feel chaotic. Like my brain would be screaming. And? It's not." He paused. "It's quiet." That word stuck with me. Quiet. For someone like Curtis, who filled every space with noise, music, laughter, that meant something. "You okay?" I asked gently. He nodded. "Yeah. I keep replaying the last 10 minutes in my head." "Regretting it?" He turned to me immediately. "No." The certainty in his voice was instant. "I'm just realizing," he continued softer now, "that I've been avoiding this for a while." My chest tightened slightly. "Avoiding what?" He hesitated, then admitted, "Looking at you too long. Thinking too much about why I cared so much when you'd cancel plans. Wondering why I got weirdly jealous when you mentioned dating someone." I blinked. "You got jealous?" He gave me a small, embarrassed smirk. "Don't make it dramatic." "I'm not," I said, trying not to smile. "I just didn't know." "Yeah, well." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't either." That honesty felt heavier than any kiss. "You think this started tonight?" he asked. I don't know, I admitted. He looked at me thoughtfully. I think it started before that, he said quietly. I just didn't have the language for it. That hit me hard. Because I remembered being 16 and not having language for it either. Just confusion. Just tension. Just knowing something didn't line up with what everyone expected. You don't have to label it, I reminded him again. I know. He paused. But I do know one thing. What? When I kissed you, it didn't feel like I was trying something new. It felt like I was finally doing something I'd already wanted. My breath caught slightly at that. That scares me, he added quickly. Not because it's you. Just because it changes how I see myself. That's normal, I said gently. He studied my face again. Are you scared? He asked. Yes. That seemed to surprise him. Why? Because I've wanted you for a long time, I said honestly. And I don't want to lose you if this gets complicated. He went quiet at that. You won't, he said after a second. You can't promise that. No, he admitted. But I can promise I won't treat this lightly. That meant more than a grand declaration ever could. The room settled again into that same steady quiet. After a moment, he shifted slightly closer, not to escalate anything, just to rest his arm lightly across my shoulders. It was simple. Casual. Almost ordinary. And somehow that felt more intimate than anything else tonight. I don't want this to just live inside this apartment, he said quietly. I looked up at him. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want to act like nothing happened when we go out. I'm not saying I'm ready to announce anything. I just don't want to snap back into some fake version of myself. That was bigger than I expected. You don't have to, I said. He nodded slowly. I don't know what I'll tell people yet, he admitted. But I don't want to pretend with you. You won't have to. He squeezed my shoulder gently. You make this feel steady, he murmured again. I let myself lean into him just slightly. And you make this feel real, I replied. We sat like that for a while. No rush. No dramatic escalation. Just breathing in the same space, processing the fact that something had shifted permanently. After a few minutes, he broke the silence. So what does tomorrow look like? He asked. I considered that. Normal, I said. We wake up. We get coffee. We don't pretend this didn't happen. And if I reach for your hand in public? He asked quietly. My heart skipped. Then I'll let you, I said. He was quiet again. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, he admitted. That's okay. But I don't want to hide you. I'm not something you hide, I said softly. He looked at me then, serious, grounded. I know. The sincerity in his eyes made something inside me settle. For the first time tonight, this didn't feel fragile. It felt intentional. And intention is harder to break than impulse. After a while, he stood up and pulled me up with him. Stay, he said again, but this time it wasn't loaded. It was simple. I will. He didn't pull me into anything intense after that. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me in a slow, steady hug. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just holding. And as I stood there, feeling his breathing even out against my shoulder, I realized something important. The moment I caught him wasn't the moment everything changed. The moment he stopped pretending was. But tomorrow? Tomorrow would test whether he could be this version of himself outside these four walls. And neither of us knew yet how that would go. I woke up before him. For a second, I didn't know where I was. The room was dim, early morning light barely slipping through the blinds. Then I felt it. His arm. Heavy, warm, draped across my waist. Curtis was still asleep, breathing slow and even behind me. At some point in the night, we'd shifted from sitting and talking to lying down fully clothed, facing each other. I must have drifted off with his hands still in mine. Now he was curled closer, instinctive, like his body had made a decision his brain hadn't caught up to yet. I stayed still. Partly because I didn't want to wake him. Partly because I wanted to feel what this was like in the quiet, unfiltered morning. No adrenaline. No charged tension. Just reality. He stirred slightly, his grip tightening for a second before loosening again. A soft breath against the back of my neck. And I realized something. He didn't pull away. He didn't instinctively create distance. He held on. After a minute, his breathing shifted. Slower to awake. "Ian?" he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "Yeah." A small pause. Then, instead of jerking back or acting confused, he pulled me closer. Not dramatically. Just enough to press his forehead lightly between my shoulder blades. "Okay," he muttered. I smiled faintly. "Okay, what?" "I don't regret it." That word again. Regret. "I didn't think you would," I said softly. He exhaled slowly. "I thought I'd wake up and panic. And I didn't." He shifted so we were facing each other now, eyes still a little heavy but fully aware. "This feels normal," he admitted. It did. That was the surprising part. There was no awkwardness. No frantic backtracking. No nervous jokes. Just quiet understanding. "You sure?" I asked gently. "Yeah." He studied my face. "Are you?" "I'm cautious," I said honestly. He nodded slightly. "Because of me?" "Because this matters to me." He absorbed that. "I know," he said. There was something steadier about him this morning. Less overwhelmed. More settled. "I don't feel like I flipped a switch overnight," he continued. "I feel like I stopped ignoring something." That was different from a crisis. That was self-awareness. "And I don't want to run from it now," he added. "Even when it gets complicated?" He gave a small, crooked smile. "When has my life ever not been complicated?" "Fair." He reached out slowly, brushing his thumb lightly along my jaw. "Not testing. Not uncertain. Comfortable." "That wasn't just curiosity," he said again, softer now. "If it was, it would have faded this morning." It hadn't. I could see that in the way he was looking at me. "Do you want to tell anyone?" I asked carefully. He thought about it. "Not yet," he said honestly. "I'm still adjusting. But I don't want to act single around you either." That was new. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," he said, sitting up slightly, "if someone flirts with me tonight, I'm not going to play along." Tonight. Right. We were supposed to go out. He looked at me like he just remembered too. "We don't have to," I said. "No." He shook his head slowly. "We should." "Why?" "Because I need to know if I'm only confident in this room." That was bold. "You don't have to prove anything," I reminded him. "I'm not proving," he said again. "I'm choosing." That word still carried weight. He stood up and stretched lightly, then turned back toward me. "Come with me," he said. "To the bar?" "Yeah." "And what exactly are we doing there?" He stepped closer again, steady gaze locked on mine. "We're not announcing anything," he said. "But we're not pretending either." That was a thin line. "You sure you're ready for that?" I asked. He paused. Then nodded. "I'm not ready to define myself," he admitted. "But I am ready to not lie." That felt bigger than any label. I stood up slowly. "You okay if I stay close?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "I'd be more nervous if you didn't." The honesty in that made something warm settle in my chest. He grabbed his wallet from the dresser, the reason I'd come here in the first place, and slipped it into his pocket. Then he looked at me again. "This changes things?" he said quietly. "Yeah. But not in a bad way." I studied him. "No," I agreed. "Not in a bad way." He stepped closer one last time before we left the room. "Ian?" "Yeah?" "If I hesitate out there, don't assume I'm backing out." "I won't." "And if I reach for your hand?" I met his gaze steadily. "I'll be right there." For the first time since I'd known him, Curtis wasn't trying to be fearless. He was choosing courage. And the world outside that apartment? It was about to find out which version of him was real. The bar was louder than usual. Or maybe I was just hyper-aware of everything. Curtis and I walked in side by side, not touching, but close enough that our shoulders brushed as we moved through the crowd. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't performative. It was intentional. He ordered drinks like he always did, confident, easy smile, casual charm. But I could see the difference now. He wasn't scanning the room the way he used to. He wasn't playing to it. He kept glancing at me instead. "You okay?" I asked quietly once we found a spot near the wall. "Yeah," he said, exhaling slowly. "Just feeling it." "Feeling what?" He gave me a small smirk. "That I'm not pretending." That word again. Pretending. A girl from one of our usual friend groups walked over a few minutes later. She leaned into Curtis's space the way she always did, laughing too loud at his joke, touching his arm like it was automatic. I watched his reaction carefully. Old Curtis would have leaned into it. He didn't. He stepped back half an inch. Subtle. But deliberate. Then he glanced at me. Not nervously. Just checking in. And that was when I realized this wasn't about announcing anything. It was about alignment. "Still coming to Jake's party next week?" she asked him, smiling. "Yeah," he said easily. "Bringing someone?" He hesitated. "Not long. Just enough to matter." "Yeah," he said, and looked at me. She followed his gaze. "Oh," she said lightly. "You two finally dating or something?" The question was half a joke. Half not. The air felt thin. Curtis didn't laugh it off. He didn't deflect. He didn't make some exaggerated straight guy comment. He just shrugged slightly. "Something like that." My heart slammed in my chest. She blinked once, clearly recalibrating, then smiled again, curious, but not cruel. "Okay," she said simply. "About time you figured your stuff out." And then she walked away. Just like that. No explosion. No dramatic confrontation. Just acceptance. Curtis stood there for a second, processing. "That wasn't so bad," he muttered. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "Did that scare you?" he asked. "Yes," I admitted. "Me too." He stepped a little closer this time. Not grabbing. Not making a scene. Just letting his arm brush against mine and not moving away. That small contact felt louder than anything in the room. "I don't know what I am yet," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But I know I don't want to hide you." The words hit deeper here, outside the safety of his apartment. "You don't have to decide everything tonight," I said. "I know." He paused. "But I can decide this." "And what's that?" He turned fully toward me now. "That I'm not going back to pretending." For the first time, there was no hesitation in him. Not reckless. Not impulsive. Grounded. He reached for my hand. Not dramatically. Not raising it high like some declaration. Just lacing his fingers through mine at his side. And he didn't let go. The world didn't stop. No one gasped. Music kept playing. Glasses clinked. People laughed. But something inside me shifted permanently. Because this wasn't about a kiss in a quiet bedroom anymore. This was about him choosing to stand next to me when it counted. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Yeah," I said, squeezing his hand back. "You." He smiled, not the arrogant grin, not the practiced charm. Something softer. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." Later that night, when we stepped outside for air, the city lights reflecting off the pavement, he stopped walking for a second. "I'm glad you walked in when you did," he said. I laughed quietly. "You didn't look glad at the time." "I was terrified." "I noticed." He shook his head slightly. "I thought you'd see something embarrassing." "I saw something honest." I corrected. He looked at me for a long second. Yeah, he said quietly. You did. And that was the truth. I hadn't caught him doing something shameful. I'd caught him in the middle of becoming himself. He stepped closer, brushing a quick, soft kiss against my lips. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just real. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For not running. I smiled faintly. You're worth staying for. He exhaled slowly, like that meant more than he expected. And as we walked back inside, hands still loosely connected, I realized something important. The moment I caught him wasn't the beginning. It was the crack in the wall he built around himself. And instead of pretending it wasn't there, he let it break. And he let me stand beside him while it did,